Do you know what a monster is? We all know Griffith, Johann, Frieza as some prime examples, their actions leading to an almost supernatural fear of them.
But what if I told you there's a monster that's just as evil? Her none other than a mother. Someone who should protect, love, and the last person you'd expect such evil from.
Let me introduce you to Psycho, the antagonist of Chi no Wadachi, also known as Blood on the Tracks. A manga series about a mother and her child, or should I say, a series about the trauma she inflicts on said child. Today I'll walk you through their story, from the evil to the recovery, from manipulation to trying to kill him. You will understand by the end of this that even someone as innocent as a mother can be the definition of pure evil. Wow, it's so cute. Huh? Mommy, it's cold? So it is. It's dead. Poor kitty. Huh? Why? Why is it dead?
Our main character, Seichi or Sei, is woken up from a dream by his mother, Psycho. Before she playfully taps his neck, it's time to begin his day. He heads downstairs, eats breakfast, and goes to school. An already normal day for a boy of his age. Even more so as he plays around with some friends, and even blushes at the sight of a girl he likes. After school, Seichi makes plans to see his friends the following day. But upon speaking to his mother, he learns his aunt and cousin, Shigeru or Shige, are coming over. And even though his mother states it's fine if he doesn't cancel if he's not there, Seichi caves pretty fast. He then mentions the dream about the cat to his mother, her eyes lighting up in glee upon mentioning the memory. She's surprised he could even remember that. He was only 3 when it happened. The next morning, the family comes over, Seichi playing games with Shige until he remarks that his family is rather overprotective. Shige remembers that in kindergarten, Psycho would sit in the back of the classroom to watch Shige every day, saying that it was pretty weird, but this upsets Seichi, him demanding that Shige doesn't speak about his mother in that way. From then on, Shige and his mother would come over every weekend. This clearly cutting into Seichi's summer vacation as he feels like he can't go out with his friends at all. On the final day of school, Seichi is approached by the girl he likes, Fukishi, her nervously asking if she could come over sometime. Seichi's surprised and eager to get closer to her, says he'll ask his mother. And upon asking, Psycho surprisingly says this is just fine, though she'd like if he'd wait till after a planned family trip. As Seichi heads up the stairs with a smile on his face, Psycho asks, "You seem happy. Something happened?" Seichi quickly walks off. Nope, nothing much. And as Psycho watches him head up the stairs, she stares with a strange, empty expression. The next we see of the family is on the before-mentioned family trip, a hiking trip. And things are normal. Boys playing with sticks, warm weather, and lots of pretty sights. We see a scene of Shige telling Seichi to look out over a cliff. And as he walks forward, his mother grabs his arm, telling him, "Seichi, be careful." And as he looks down, Shige playfully pushes him, causing Psycho to freak out and grab Seichi quickly. The family laughs at this, yet again saying that she is very overprotective, a thought that echoes as the next scene we see is Seichi and his mother eating alone away from the family. Seichi and his cousin then take a leak, them being away from the family for the first time, prompting them to do some exploring of their own. Them coming across a very beautiful cliff. Just like before, Shige tells Seichi to come look, though this time he hesitates, right as his mother now appears behind him.
Shige, you'd better not stand there. It's dangerous. Whoa. Mom was right. You're so overprotective. Shige! Shige, didn't I tell you? Oh, shut up, said I was fine. She then goes quiet, a short few seconds that feel like minutes. And as Shige notices the ominous look on her face, she turns as if nothing happened, a smile on her face.
Seichi is frozen in fear, an emotion he's never felt when it comes to his mother. Unable to look forward and already trying to mentally cover up what he's witnessed. But that's when Psycho calls out for him to go get help. In a blur, Seichi rushes to the rest of his family, finding himself face to face with them saying, "Shige fell off the cliff," but nothing more. They run to Psycho, her still in the same place as she describes what happened with teary eyes. Yet she only says that he lost balance and she was too late to save him. The rest of the family rushes to search and find help, leaving Seichi with his mother. And as he approaches, she's seemingly broke, spouting random nonsense as she just stares with a blank look in her eyes. As he shouts "Mom," she returns to normal, her quickly grabbing and hugging Seichi. That concludes the first volume of Blood on the Tracks, a slow opening volume with the payoff of this grand, crazy event. And well, I'm just gonna say now, it's only going to get worse. We still have 16 volumes worth of horrors to get through, and while right now it's terrifying, I'm gonna warn you right about now, it's yet again only going to get even more terrifying, more disgusting, just worse. And this is where I'm gonna give you a contents warning of everything on screen here. This manga is pretty messed up, and besides describing and showing the events these topics speak of, it does go in depth with the trauma of each and every one of them. If anything bothers you, I highly encourage you to make the right choice for yourself and just stop watching, go do whatever you need to do. It's alright. But that was your final warning, last chance. We're gonna get further and further into the darkness. The family quickly finds Shige in horrible condition. Despite that, he lives, and seems to be somewhat aware, as when he looks at Seichi and his mother, his eyes open further. They learn at the hospital Shige has a chance to live, but even then, it's a possibility he'll never regain full consciousness. And say if he does, well, the boy will be severely impaired. The family is then questioned by the police, Psycho telling them the exact same thing she said before. She had tried to save him, but was too late. Seichi is then asked if what she said is true. He was there after all, and as he looks up at his mother's smiling face, he says, yes, it was just as mommy said. The following day, Seichi wakes up from a terrifying nightmare, it depicting Shige as the dead cat. Perhaps it being him comparing Shige to the only instance of death he's ever seen, the cat. He then refuses to go see his cousin in the hospital, leaving him home alone as he hears the doorbell. Seichi opens the door to none other than Fukishi, her upset that he had never called her to say if she could come over, and so she's just come over anyways. They awkwardly drink some tea before Seichi shows her his room. Though upon mentions of his cousin's incident, Seichi begins to break down, saying maybe today isn't the best time. Fukishi gets up to leave, her giving Seichi a letter on the way out, and as he sits there with letter in hand, the door opens to Psycho. A Psycho with that same blank expression. And as Fukishi quickly explains who she is, she leaves. As the door closes, Psycho demands Seichi show her the letter, opening it to reveal a love note. Seichi blushes in awe as he reads the letter, Fukishi asking to be his girlfriend. But as he reads the letter, something distracts him. His mother's tears fall onto his lap. He looks over to see her crying and her saying that he can't. She refuses to accept this, before saying that they need to get rid of this letter. They embrace each other and fall into the bed crying, Seichi begging for his mother to not leave him. And so she prompts him to do everything she says, starting with this letter. She slowly rips up the letter as tears fall from his face, forcing him to watch as the letter slowly becomes ineligible. And as he blankly stares at the aftermath, Psycho pulls his face in for a kiss on the lips. So I think it's pretty clear what's going on here. The mother, Psycho, obviously has issues. Besides the kiss and the way too much contact, she is dangerously possessive of Seichi. This isn't new either. From the very beginning of the series, we've seen this. With Seichi feeling pressured to spend time with his family instead of his friends, them coincidentally coming over all the time the second he expressed interest in being a normal teenage boy. It's clear Seichi feels as if he has to meet Psycho's demands at every point. So we arrive here, where he is clearly interested in Fukishi and is overjoyed at receiving this letter. Psycho obviously doesn't want this to go any further, and so she acts in a way that she knows she can sway Seichi, crying and acting very upset. This is all with the backdrop of what has just occurred. Shige's fall and what Seichi witnessed clearly deeply affecting him, scaring him and scarring him. Him receiving news like this is bound to cheer him up from that. Yet, Psycho just doesn't care. She acts like this knowing Seichi is sure to say yes no matter what. Though we still have no idea why Psycho is even doing this. Is it out of fear of him growing up and leaving her? Does she just want to see her child unhappy? Or does she actually have a very realistic reason? Or well, maybe there just isn't one. After all, there didn't seem to be much of a reason when she pushed Shige off the cliff. But could it really be something as simple as no reason? But could there being no reason really be the simple answer? Weeks then pass and it's the start of a new school year. Though Seiichi has changed, not much, but he all of a sudden has a very big stutter. Something that I'd like to note can be caused by extreme trauma. Embarrassed, Seiichi runs home quick, but is confronted on the way home by Fukishi, her asking about the letter. With him just barely able to say, "Sorry, mother is why." Confused, Fukishi asks, is his mother doing something bad to him? Causing him to turn around with a horrified expression before he runs off. Once home, he hears his mother fighting with his father, Ichiro, him asking her to come see Shige. But Psycho can only say that she's all alone. She's been all alone since Seiichi was born, before saying at the end of it all, she just wants to disappear. Psycho then goes on, saying she wants to go back to before she was born. She wants to erase it all. Ichiro, Seiichi, herself. As to her, this is all worthless. Ichiro, frustrated, perhaps maybe understanding this is how she's grieving, walks off, leaving Seiichi to watch as he watches his mother unravel in a similar way to on the cliff. Her imagining a young Seiichi as she plans to bring him somewhere, infinitely repeating, "Okay, okay, okay," as she stares blankly. Seiichi scrambles as he knows he shouldn't have seen that, running into his father at the front of the house, who quickly forces him to go see his cousin, Shige. Sadly, his cousin's condition hasn't improved much, the sight of him kinda shaking Seiichi as he holds his hand. Seiichi returns home and heads to sleep, waking up in the late hours of the night to catch his mother returning home. In an ominous series of panels, she confesses that she was worried, thinking he had never made it home from school in the first place, before asking, where was he? Psycho speaks about how Seiichi's dad forced him to go see Shige, yet again trying to get a hold of him. If she doesn't want to see Shige, neither can Seiichi. As she states that Ichiro doesn't care about anyone other than his other family,
she asks Seiichi if he would come with her if she left.
She mentions wanting to leave, asking if Seiichi will come with. Of course he nods in agreement, but all of a sudden gets sick, him holding his throat as he coughs, saying it won't come out. This prompts Psycho to stick her fingers down his throat, but he pushes her off. his head now facing the ground.
Is it all my fault? Are you all alone because of me? She sits there in silence as he cries out. Tell me. Say something. Tell me. Why did you push Shige? Why did you lie to everyone? Don't run away. As he runs out of breath, she finally responds. Alright. Then, is it okay if mommy dies? She pulls his arms around her neck, asking him to kill her. He cries as he stares into her blank expression, telling her to stop. Her then saying, Okay, then should mommy do it? She puts her hands around his neck and strengthens her grip, and as the air leaves his lungs, she stops, stands up, and turns on the lights, acting as if nothing happened, saying, Don't get smart with me. Who do you think you are? You're just a kid.
A month passes. Things are normal by their standards, as if nothing ever happened matter of fact. Saiko wakes Seichi, makes him food, yet he still can't speak. Yet after an outburst in school, him hitting the podium, he takes his time going home. He stops at a park, yet he's not alone. Fukishi sits down right beside him. She comes here when her and her father fight, which happens a lot, saying she once also kicked a hole in something, so now her and Seichi have something in common. Seichi then randomly gathers the courage to say that her letter had made him so happy. And despite his mind being plagued with visions of his mother, he goes on to ask her to be his girlfriend. After an awkward stare, she of course says yes. And before we know it, time passes and they're walking home together, planning to make this a newfound routine. Seichi finally makes his way to his own home, but as he walks the dark streets, Saiko wraps her arms around him, worried that he's come home late after receiving a call from the school. Yet even then, despite him getting in trouble, what worries her the most is that he smells different. The next day goes a bit different for Seichi. Him finding confidence to push past his vocal issues and read aloud in class as he looks at Fukishi, hopefully representing him pushing past that subconscious fear of his mother. The rest of the day falls in the same way as the previous. The couple spend the rest of the day talking, and at night Seichi returns home to his curious mother. The stuttering returns as he speaks to her, avoiding the questions about the nice smell and explaining him being out late as he stayed late at school. And despite her uncomfortable facial expressions, she buys it. The following day continues in this pattern. Yet as Seichi remembers his mother's words about coming home early, he'd rather ask about Fukishi, remarking that this day in specific, she seems down. Fukishi reveals she got into a physical fight with her father, him angry for the same reason Saiko has been suspecting Seichi. Yet even then, she wants to be there with Seichi. He then wraps his arms around her as they begin to hear yelling. Saiko has found them. Yet surprisingly, Seichi's first response is to run. Now in a nearby field, Saiko calls out to Seichi, learning the truth of what he's been up to and now very angry that he's lied to and betrayed her. Her reminding him of when they ripped up that letter. Seichi loses his voice as she calls out, How could you do this to me? She's always worked so hard just for him. And if he's angry about her choking him, she'll apologize. Whatever it is, just open your eyes. After all, it's not right. Say. Fukishi then tugs his sleeve and puts her hands on his face to remind him that she is here, and to not listen to Saiko no matter what. But that's when she finds them. She looks down on the two of them, demanding Fukishi get away from Seichi. And as Fukishi refuses, she continues her demands, eventually beginning to move closer and closer. But that's when Seichi stands up. Seichi yells at his mother, telling her to go away, telling her that he doesn't need her anymore. And so, Saiko just stares blankly with that same emotionless look, her beginning to bite her own finger as she states no one needs her, before walking away with that same blank smile on her face. Fukishi, now seeing her for the very first time, realizes that Saiko is terrifying and is no doubt ruining Seichi. Her looking at Seichi as she states that they need to run away. They need to run away from Saiko. One thing I want to note is Seichi's issues with speaking and his stutter. While this is a way to showcase trauma, one that works very well in a manga format, it also seems to indicate Seichi's feelings and subconscious fear towards his mother. Since the incident on the mountain, Seichi's feelings towards his mother have gotten very confusing, we'll say. Before, he felt very pressured to listen to everything she said out of love. And while I'm sure, and I know that still is somewhat the reason, now there's a lot more in the mix, a lot of fear. And so, it's very much a different feeling for him when he talks to his mother. The way I'd probably describe it is as if Seichi has begun to break. He loves his mother and he wants to understand why she's been acting how she has. But at the same time, he realizes she's done something terrible and can't really face it. Basically, it's completely ruined his world. The stutter is at its worst when he's around her, when he tries to understand, when he's fearful of her influence on him. But it does get better around Fukishi, someone separate, someone he can almost lean on, that's probably the best way to say it. And someone, as we can see, can take him away from his mother. The stutter is the perfect device to show this, showing when he's more fearful and when he's more uncomfortable, when he's getting that ominous sensation from her. And it's also a great tool to showcase how his view of her has completely fallen apart. Walking through the dark streets, Fukishi asks, "Was your mother always like that?" Which prompts Seichi to think, maybe not? He realizes he doesn't actually know. Fukishi then brings him to her place and sneaks him into her room. They eat, they play music, and before long, they're in bed together. She asks Seichi if he cares for her. He'll never ditch her, right? He agrees, and things heat up as they kiss. Though uncomfortably as this is all going on, Seichi is thinking of his mother. In the morning when going to the restroom, Seichi can't help but think of his mother yet again when realizing he had a certain reaction. An uncomfortable moment, as even in this crazy defiance, he can't help but think of her. The couple spend the rest of the day together. That is, until Seichi's mother knocks on the door, fearful that Seichi never came home after their encounter. Fukishi states that they went their separate ways after that happened, but if Seichi never came home, she says that it's Saiko's fault entirely, causing Saiko to break down in a way that implies she knows Seichi can hear her. She speaks about how terrible she is, how terrible she feels for making Seichi cancel everything, and how despite how everyone sees it as overprotective, she in reality only wanted to give him the love she never had. And if that's hurting him, why should she keep living? She then raises her head, and rather than her face being full of emotion like you'd expect, it's just blank. It's a very manipulative conversation, everything pointing to the fact that she knows Seichi can hear her. Fukishi returns to the room and hugs Seichi, promising to protect him. But that's when the door flies open. Fukishi's father is incredibly angry. A fight ensues and the couple run out into the rain, finding themselves quiet, cold, and alone underneath an overpass. A romantic encounter ensues, though just like the other times, Seichi can only think of his mother. Something about Fukishi reminding him of her, causing him to get up and break down, saying he can't do this anymore as he runs away, leaving Fukishi all alone. As Seichi walks through the rain crying, he thinks on his moments with Fukishi before running into his mother. Saiko runs up crying and apologizing for everything she's done, saying she now understands that he's a person too. Seichi cries in response, apologizing for saying that he never needed her. And so they head home with the promise that they'll talk. The home is a mess, both of his parents worried sick about him. But after some food and a bath, Seichi and Saiko sit down to have their talk. Saiko opens the conversation speaking about when Shige fell, saying that point is when everything got all complicated. Her then acting out the moment where the boy fell, though unlike as Seichi saw it, she describes him falling on his own like how she described it to the police. She cries, saying sorry she wishes she could have reached him sooner. And perhaps beginning to believe her, Seichi starts to cry as well. She holds him and explains that him believing that she had pushed him was because he was looking for someone to put it onto. But it's okay, it's neither their fault. Shige fell all on his own. Seichi looks at his mom and begins to stutter, so she doubles down. Her believing that Seichi thinks of her as a liar. Saiko saying he didn't want it to be his fault, so he thought Saiko was crazy, even turning to Fukishi as a way out. She gets closer and closer to his face, her warm breath on his skin, her asking him to remember exactly what happened. We then see a series of pages as Seichi's mental event of the event slowly changes to what she said. Him now believing every single word she said. She then asks, where was he? What was he doing? Was he with Fukishi? She forces him to tell the whole truth of the event, from start to finish, before calling him a liar with a disgusted look on her face. Saiko then tells Seichi to get out, leave her sight, then picking him up and dragging him out of the house, leaving him crying, saying he's only there because he chose her over Fukishi. He says he understands. He understands that Saiko hates Auntie, Shige, his grandparents, even hates his father, before saying he'll hate them too, even Fukishi. So please, forgive him. She then responds, you will hate them? Haven't you always hated them? Seichi agrees, saying he won't go near Fukishi anymore because he hates her. The door then cracks open as Saiko puts her pinky out, making him pinky promise as he disgustingly licks her bloodied finger. As the two of them finally make up and hold each other again, Seichi's father Ichiro walks up behind them. Shige's regained consciousness. Seichi looks to Saiko as she smiles, a fake-looking smile. As Ichiro states how happy he is, everyone's been acting funny since the trip, but now that everything's okay again, Shige has regained consciousnness, things will go back to normal. The three of them now hugging as they plan to visit the hospital the next day. It's hard to say here if Saiko really wants everything to go back to normal. After all, as the reader, we can't imagine her just being normal all of a sudden. But to the main character, Seichi, this very well could be that point for him. He believes that what he's seen was just an accident, and everything else was a byproduct of said accident. And now he's fully back under the control of his mother, and everything is kinda repaired for him, indicated by him, not stuttering as much. Of course though, we have the reader hindsight and can see how manipulative Saiko is. From the way she spoke of herself at Fukishi's house, as if she's trying to guilt trip Seichi into listening to her, all the way to the conversation she has where she indicates that she would hate Seichi if he doesn't listen. It's basically back to square one. But even then, now that she has full control of Seichi again, what is the end goal? Is this normal to say? It's a very skewered situation. We have no idea where it's going to go next. But obviously, we still have a lot of chapters to get through and there's a lot left video, so we must continue on. The next morning, they visit the now woken Shige, him saying butterflies as he views his now crowded family. They all take turns trying to speak to him, and though things don't really go too well, they all head home with hope of recovery. Seichi and his parents stop in on a diner on the way home, Ichiro commenting on how Saiko seems upset. She says she can't be glad when Shige doesn't even seem to remember that they exist. Going on to say, how will I be able to leave now? This confuses the others, and all Saiko can say is, I want things to fall apart. Seichi wakes up from a dream the following day. The same dream of finding the dead cat, before wondering if his mother's story is real. It seems like he is still having doubts. Despite these doubts, he breaks up with Fukichi at school after receiving an apology letter from her, saying he promised his mother that he'd stay away. He's done with her. Months pass. Things are somewhat normal for Seichi, though the house has started to fall apart. It's dirty and Psycho seems depressed. The mood is just very down, but we pick up with the family going to see Shige. Psycho complains on the way over, and when Seichi asks what he could do to help, she just looks at him. You? What could you do? Look at that face. You're just like your daddy. Shige still doesn't remember them, though he is recovering slowly. Proved as when his mother gets up and goes to the kitchen, he stands up, almost trying to follow her. Shige walks forward before his body fails and he just falls. Seichi grabbing him, but upon hearing his aunt's voice, he drops him, just as if it was on the cliff. As his aunt rushes into the room scared, Shige just points to Psycho with a terrified expression on his face, recoiling in fear while muttering, "Don't push me." His mother then looks up, saying she doesn't want to think that, doesn't want to say it. Please, say she's wrong. Psycho didn't push Shigeru, did she? Seichi and his mom sit there speechless, a moment that feels like minutes, till Seichi slaps his aunt, angry and demanding that he doesn't accuse and speak to his mother like that. He goes on. His mother hates it, her coming over all the time, her making fun of her, all before saying Shige had it coming. It was his own fault that he fell. Psycho stands behind Seichi crying, whimpering, saying, "How could you say such a thing? I'm so sad," before leaving with Seichi. Surprisingly, this moment makes Psycho happy. Not only because of the stated reason that she could finally say how she felt, but because it proves that Seichi is truly under her control. A few days pass, but we next see Seichi when a couple of boys come up and mess with him in the school restroom. Strangely, he imagines them as Shige, them looking down on him as he assumes his cousin did. He turns to the boys, but their faces are a blur, and with the blank expression on his face, he swings, beating the boy up. Upon explaining why he did it during a conference, all Seichi can say is, "They're all dead. Everyone, everything is dead. So I figured it doesn't matter. It's all an illusion anyways. Garbage." This is when Psycho interjects, blaming everything on Fukishi, saying she manipulated him and did bad things to him, made him dirty in her words. And of course, Seichi just agrees. On the way home, Psycho discusses what Seichi said, and instead of questioning it, she responds saying she thought the same thing at his age. Maybe she still does. She then decides to take him to a place she used to visit, a pathway on the mountain overlooking the dimly lit town. Psycho mentions how she used to bring him here when he was little, and surprisingly, Seichi remembers, as tears flow down his face, though he has no idea why the view makes him sad. Seichi then remembers his dream about the dead cat, saying that that road is super close by to here. But for some reason, Psycho can no longer remember that memory. A week passes and Seichi returns to school, him being teased over what his mother had said, Fukishi too, and so he heads home as we see his world has become even more distorted. But in this moment, he's stopped by his aunt. Surprisingly, she doesn't seem angry, even offering to give him a lift since she's just happened to spot him. Though as she begins to drive, she goes off course. She begins to grill Seichi. Apparently Shige has gotten a lot better and has told her the truth of what happened on the mountain. Though the version that she's heard is that he was pushed by Psycho. And so she asks, "Is that the truth, Seichi?" Seichi gets very angry, yelling his mother is the one telling the truth, and so she stares at him as she begins to speak.
Say, the reason I was always calling her overprotective was that I was worried about you. Psycho's weird. She's always been weird. She's always clung to you. Whenever you tried to do something, she'd cut you off and do it for you. Also, when you were little, you got hurt, Say. When you were about 3, did your mommy do something to you? Seichi then instantly recalls the memory of the cat, though this time, he's covered in blood. And it can't be the cat's. Its fur is snow white. He begins to shake in fear as he holds his arm, his aunt asking him one more time to tell the truth.
Seichi yet again gets angry, attacking his aunt before she yells at him to stop, calling both him and his mother murderers. He gets out of the car and runs home terrified, telling his mother everything. Yet when mentioning the part about when they were called murderers, Psycho just laughs. Seichi then mentions the idea of him getting hurt when he was 3. And there it is, it's just that blank expression. She then breaks, asking if their family will think that they're evil. Will the police come to take her away? Will they finally take her far away from all of this? She laughs in glee at the idea. She can't wait. And asks Seichi, what will he do if she disappears? Him saying that if she disappears, he'll disappear with her. The next morning we see Seichi in school, his world no longer resembling anything as he thinks about his mother being a murderer and therefore taken away from him. As he walks home, he thinks about how his only real option is to do something about it. And as he turns the corner, his aunt's car is in the driveway. Seichi frantically runs into the house, quickly yelling at his aunt to leave. But Psycho quiets him. It doesn't matter anymore.
Psycho, give me an answer. Did you push Shigeru off that cliff? Answer me. She stares blankly forward, Seiichi standing in the background frightened, before she opens her mouth. Yeah, that's right. I pushed him. Ichiro then turns to Seiichi in disbelief, asking the hope-filled question, she didn't push him, did she? Like always, Seiichi turns to his mother first, a blank smile on her face. And before Seiichi can answer, all hell breaks loose. Yelling, insulting, violence, all before Seiko's head is forcefully pushed down, leading her to say, let's go to the police. As they drag her out of the door, Seiichi clings to her legs, crying. Seiichi, mommy's going away now. You and daddy, take care. Sorry for making you lie, Sei. Sei, you can live your life, however you like, because I won't be there anymore. I'm sorry I couldn't be a good mommy. Bye, Sei.
This ends what I would probably say is the first third of this series. And even though we're halfway through volume-wise, chapter-wise, there's about 3 major arcs this series has, and this is the end of the first one. But the end here leaves us a lot to think about. How will Psycho make her way out of this? She's lacked emotions and has made statements about just wanting everything to fall apart. And this seems like that. But then you had the moment at the end where she spoke to Seiichi, which clearly contradicts exactly that. Then of course we do have the question of Seiichi himself. A simple one. How will the kid deal with his mother's loss? It's a tragic, sick, uncomfortable tale. And in reality, we are only just beginning. Seiichi with tear-filled eyes watches the car drive away. His father quickly approaching to say that he's following them to the station. But first, he says Seiichi shouldn't worry. he's a good kid, and still a boy, reminding him that none of this is really his fault. We then see a series of panels depicting Seichi walk back into the house, set his stuff down, look out the window, and take a deep breath. This being the first time Seichi is truly free and away from his mother, it being symbolized as him taking a deep breath and clearing his throat. Just like the throat clearing, that night he has a dream about Fukishi, thinking that he's allowed to think about her again. His father returns home. His mother has been placed in jail, and now the police want to speak to Seichi, and so we next see him in a police interrogation. They go over the whole day of the incident, but the detective constantly stops to comment on things Seichi says, like making him realize that his family seemed to like Shige more, that his family laughed at his mom, and most of all, to him, Psycho was pitiful. The detective continues to ask about his mother, getting to the question, did your mother do something to you? Something bad, something that would make you afraid. This stops Seichi for a second, but unlike the whole conversation up to this point, he can't keep eye contact as he responds, no. Seichi continues to explain the story, but stops when they reach that fatal moment. Sensing his hesitation, the detective tells him that he is his own person. Seichi is himself, and so he should say whatever Seichi thinks. These words seem to shock Seichi, as if it's what he needed to hear the whole time. Him telling the true rest of the story without a single pause. Describing how Psycho ran over, grabbed Shige, and pushed him right over the cliff, saying, "Mommy pushed him." Back in the car, Seichi meets his mother's lawyer, learning that she's fully confessed to the act, and when upon asked about a motive, she just says, "I just felt like it." Seichi then reveals that he told the detective the truth, that he saw his mother push Shige, this causing his father Ichiro to break down. That night, Seichi dreams of the cat yet again, though this time it's from third person, revealing a bloodied Seichi petting the dead cat, before his mother turns to him to ask a series of questions. This causes him to wake up in a cold sweat screaming he's sorry, before he stands up to remind himself of the detective's words, "I belong to me." The next day, he goes with detectives to the scene of the crime to reenact how it happened. Him imagining his mother multiple times and freaking out when he sees the woman that is playing as her. The woman looking strikingly similar to his mother. I know I'm interrupting, but I seriously need to talk a bit more about this. It might have been apparent, but whenever Seichi interacts with a woman that isn't his family, they appear to look like very similar to his mother. This could just be a matter of art style, of course it happens with manga a lot, same face syndrome, but I would argue, because everything in this manga seems very intentional, that this is just another way Seichi's trauma and attachment is shown. I say this because you can even confuse Fukishi for Psycho at points, and Seichi will constantly think of his mother when he is with Fukishi. Matter of fact, if you were to just remove her mole, you probably couldn't tell the difference between the two of them in some scenes, so it's just probably why that is even there. I just wanted to real quick stop and point this out so that you can think about it as well. So please keep it in mind as we read. As Seichi and the group of detectives reenact the day, they finally reach the cliff scene. And as Seichi reveals how Shige was pushed, it sends him into a bizarre flashback, unlocking a horrifying memory. He witnesses a scene of himself as a child, his mother taking him to the mountainside view she had shown him previously, her face looking dead as ever.
She speaks as she holds him tight. "Pretty soon, I'm going to disappear. That means you have to disappear too. You first, okay?" Psycho then tossing the child Seichi off the mountain. Him tumbling down the whole mountain, yet still living and still conscious as he views his mother walk up to him. With the same look on her face, she stares at his mangled, bloody self and calmly says, "Oh well, let's go home," before making him stand up and walk home with her. On the way home, they spot the cat that Seichi has been dreaming about. the scene playing out the clearest it's ever been, with the present Seichi finally realizing what the cat has meant to him. That's right, the cat is me, killed and left behind. He asks himself, why did she have me? Was I just a doll? A doll that was meant to always feel sorry for her? As he remembers everything, he has one thing in his mind. Hate. I hate you more than anything else in the world.
Next morning, Psycho's lawyer is over and yet again discussing her motive. This time saying that Psycho apparently saw Seichi when she pushed Shige. A week later, Seichi returns to school, and as you can expect from teenage boys, they barrage him about jokes involving his mother, even including Fukishi. And after one of the boys jokes about Seichi killing him, he just walks out. As he walks out of the gates of the school, he is approached by none other than Fukishi, her apologizing for never being able to understand him and then saying that they should get out of here together. They end up next to a river, and one thing to note here is that Seichi's stutter starts to kinda return. Yet again, his speech being even more messed up as it seems like his relationship with his mother, and maybe women in general, gets worse. Something that has really gotten worse with his returning memories. Seichi can't understand why Fukishi would want to be next to him. It can't do her any good. And so she responds honestly. Her mother left her when she was young and cared about anything that wasn't her far more than her. And so she doesn't want to leave Seichi behind in the same way. She turns to him. Do you not want me around? Seichi freezes up, then looks down, revealing the memory he recalled, saying his mother killed him. He describes the events he's been through, saying to protect himself and to keep himself together, he went along with his mother. He gloomed onto his mother, basically becoming an extension or part of her. But now that he's realized everything that's happened to him, he wants to bring himself back from the dead, so to say. She agrees and wants to do the same, saying that rather than almost trying to make Seichi an extension of her pain of herself, she wants to become two people with him. They then laugh over their shared hatred of their mothers before hugging, but all of a sudden Fukishi has an idea. She asks him to draw his mother's face over a bag, describing this activity as killing their mothers. As they uncomfortably smash the bag with rocks, Seichi imagines his as Psycho, then tossing it into the river to never be seen again. They then kiss and share I love yous, seeing this as a point where they can now truly live together. Days pass and the investigation moves slowly, picking up in a scene where we see Seichi and his father discussing moving. Seichi speaking up and being adamant about never seeing his mother again, saying as soon as he can, he's moving far away. Seichi's mind seems clearer than ever and ready for a fresh start. After a loving, hopeful conversation with Fukishi, he states it's over and smiles, just to look outside and see snow, the start of a new season. A string of events that just all point to a better future. He steps outside with a smile, the comfortable noises of a snowstorm all around him. But something sounds off. Shige comes tumbling around the corner. He's adamant about hanging out with Seichi, saying he had to come see him, before he looks up at Seichi with a sad face. Say, please, let's go to the mountain. Shaken up and concerned, Seichi tries to stop him, but no matter what, Shige pushes on towards the mountain, falling multiple times before they reach the point, yet they still make it, the view looking over the whole town.
Shige turns and speaks to Seichi, but for some strange reason, he keeps referring to Seichi as Shige, and as he questions this, Shige stumbles over his words before saying he's Seichi. He then goes on about himself. Shige is half dead, twisted, killed, but still alive, pushed off a cliff and left for dead. Shige then asks if Seichi will leave him behind, before crying and asking for him to put him back to the way he was. Seichi responds. He won't leave him behind, but he can't fix him. Even then though, he's not some poor thing. They may both be twisted, but they can come back to life. Shige then asks who he is, then saying he himself is Mommy. Him twisting and turning as he says she's coming back. Seiichi stares in fear, silent. That is till he hears a voice call his name. Turning to stare into the endless white till he begins to see a familiar silhouette. Him breaking down and crying, demanding it go away as he screams at the illusion of his mother. All for her to stare back at him with that same blank face. Have you really suffered so much? Those words set Seiichi off, him laughing as he describes how he's been suffering. She stole him from himself, him living the way she wanted him to be as if he was her slave. Yet she did this in a way that made him think he wanted to be that. He hurt himself every day in every moment, yet didn't feel like he could ever know that. So he screams at her. Yeah, he's suffered. More than she'll ever know. He goes on through everything she's done. Every controlling, obsessive thing she's ever done to him. Yet she just stares at him with that same expression. Seiichi continues to yell, him visually becoming corrupted as he screams for her to leave him. Screams about how much she hurts him, then ignores it. Most of all, why can't she be happy with who Seiichi is? Why is she only satisfied when he is unhappy and alongside her? She then responds, "Coward, don't blame me. Look at yourself. You're the one who's crazy, Seiichi." She then describes how she looks in this illusion, like a monster, and explains it as if he's trying to make everything her fault, her saying that in reality everything has been Seiichi's fault. He's the one who doesn't love anybody. Seiichi then imagines the day Shige was pushed from his mother's point of view, imagining that in truth she was fearful of Seiichi, her terrified that he regretted being born, asking for her to atone for giving birth to him. She now imagines Seiichi as a giant, flipping his feelings of her onto his head. Seiichi telling himself this is how he is in his mother's mind. And in the fatal moment, he imagines she did it because he wanted her to. She then comes up to him crying, mirroring everything Seiichi said about his pain earlier. But he accepts the blame for it, kissing her. Seiichi asks himself if he should have never been born, seeing a child version of himself on the cliff as it snows. The child saying everything went wrong because he never died like he was meant to when his mother was brave enough to drop him. And so, the child asks for him to push him now. Seiichi stares at him before picking him up in the same way his mother did. The child begging to be dropped as Seiichi's world distorts. Him now smiling as he imagines throwing himself into the void. Shige goes flying, Seiichi pushing him off the mountain in the same way his mother did. Shige looking back at him and saying a single phrase, "Thanks." Seiichi then freezes in place, silent, cold, and emotionless, his face consumed by a blank stare as he walks off, everything fading to black.
Okay, so there is a lot to talk about here, but the first thing I'll start with is the Volume 11 Extra, which does give a lot of essential context to this whole situation. It's on screen now. It reads as follows. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm going to Seiichi's. I'm sorry, I really can't help it. Even if Mom says no, we'll go up to the mountain together. I'm sorry things turned out this way. Thank you for taking care of me through all of this. Shigeru. And you can see a pencil indicating that the boy clearly wrote this note himself, and there's a picture of him and Shige, illustrating there's care. He put in care, the boy is more active than we think, and he wrote this himself basically. This note clears up two assumptions. One, Shigeru is more conscious than we could have ever thought, And 2, he went up there more or less to have Seichi help him remove himself. From there, Seichi pushed him down, that much being very obvious. But what about the visions and things Seichi saw during all of this? I assume the scene of visiting the mountains seriously affected him mentally. Visiting this spot for the first time since his mother's been gone, and for the first time since he's remembered all of those memories. He then related the messed up Shige to himself, him viewing himself as damaged and not complete because of all the things he's been through. This leads him to imagining Shige as the child version of himself on the mountain. In a moment like this, his trauma already affecting him, making him think of things, he's bound to see his mother, the root of it all. His mother here obviously isn't real, but I do think the realest part of this whole scene is when Seichi screams at her. What he says, the way he describes himself, just everything, probably being the truest way he says everything about how he feels. Even then though, after screaming at her, he's incredibly terrified of her, imagining her as this giant figure of just overpowering him. But the second he thinks about what she'd think, hearing him say all this, he imagines her putting it back onto him, and therefore he just feels guilty. He falls back into the cycle of everything being his fault. He imagines himself as a problem, as if him literally existing is the reason his mother has done everything that she's done. And so, of course, he imagines hurting himself. In that act, pushing Shige, who he imagines is himself. This is probably the most terrifying scene in the series when it comes to describing how Seichi encounters and battles his trauma. Ironically, it's also one of the only scenes that isn't real. I mean, parts of it are real, but some of them, like him seeing his mother, obviously isn't. Seichi wakes up the very next day assuming everything we just seen was a dream. But at the same time he begins to notice things like his soaking wet coat, he hears a knock at the door. Investigators are out looking for Shige. He describes the dream he had and states it's just a dream, but the investigators catch on pretty quick, confronting him and causing Seichi to confess everything pretty quick, confessing that he went up and pushed Shige off the cliff. At the scene, he helps them find his body, him imagining himself as the dead cat as they lift it up, yet again inserting himself as the cat in Shige. At the station, Seichi denies that it was him finishing the job for his mother, instead describing it as Shige dying for him. He destroyed himself and Shige died. And thanks to that, it's all over. Everyone's gone now. And he says this with the same expression his mother always had. Seichi then heads to court before being placed in juvenile detention for the time being. And after meeting his lawyer, he asks if his mother has any idea what he's done, yet his lawyer has no answer. As the days pass, that thought infects Seiichi's brain. What would his mother think? Eventually, he does get to hear her answer. She just cried. And this consumes him. He thinks nonstop about her, scribbling in a sketchbook all about her, dreaming about her telling him that he can only think about her. In a later interview, a detective explains everything from his perspective, saying that Psycho is Seiichi's life. She controls everything about him and has now killed him psychologically. Seichi has no real self, only what she had chosen for him, and now that she's gone, so is he. He then explains that Seichi pushing Shige was him trying to get his sense of self back by doing the same exact thing that she had done, before telling Seichi that he needs to be the one to decide that self, not his mother. Seichi then rebuttals. No, it was him who took his mother from herself. So he ended himself, but somehow Shige was the one who died. Even he seems to truly lost himself as he sits there, and the only thing he can think of is the question, what the hell am I? The next thing we hear is that Psycho has changed her story, saying she never did anything in the first place. Shige fell by himself after all. The detectives then ask Seichi one more time, what did he see on the cliff that day? Yet unlike the last few times, he now has no idea. While the other times it was clear, it's not anymore. He thinks to himself, maybe it was all my imagination. The investigator states that Saiko only confessed due to the violence that was done against her and that she didn't want Seichi to see her like that. And this thought causes Seichi to break. He stands up and begins to scream. His world falling apart being represented as it turns into a blur as he questions himself. What was I doing if she never even did it? Him screaming louder than ever before as everything turns to black. Months pass, and we next learn that Saiko has been released due to lack of evidence. His father promising Seichi that his mother will soon come to see him. Just like before when he wondered what she'd think, this starts to consume Seichi. Yet, unlike before, he never does get an answer. We continuously see him spiral over and over again as he hopes she'll come and see him, yet she never does. Eventually it is time for his hearing, still unable to see Saiko, but once in the courtroom, his father pulls him aside and speaks to him. His mother is here.
Saiko walks up and sits next to Seichi, yet she just stares ahead, ignoring his presence. Ichiro asks her to say something to Seichi, yet she just smiles as the hearing begins. As Seichi is questioned, his stutter returns, just barely uttering that he only thought about his mother and that Shigeru's death was pointless. And so, they turn to his parents to ask them. Ichiro begins to answer. He was worried about Seichi and knew he had a lot on his mind, but he never thought he'd do this. Saiko then interrupts. I'm giving up. I'm giving up motherhood. Seichi stares in shock as she continues. I'm giving up pretending to be a mother. In the end, I have never once managed to genuinely feel like a mother. I never should have had children. I should have stayed alone. Saiko then goes on with a smile on her face, explaining how every step of the process she was conflicted on having a child and was wrong in the end. All before finally saying, it's time to get rid of him, to get rid of my child. I can now, can I? Now that he's murdered someone. I can finally be by myself. My life is about to begin. Thank you for being a murderer. Seiichi's world shatters as his mother is escorted out of the room, her being drawn as a light leaving his life. His jaw then drops. Yet no scream emerges as he runs up and grabs Saiko, slamming her to the floor as he chokes her in a fit of rage. As he holds her down, all she mutters is, "Oh, I see," before Seichi is dragged off of her. He stands there in disbelief, his face completely emotionless as Saiko stands up and only says, "Can I go now?" Seiichi's final view of his mother being described as the light completely disappearing. Time passes and the hearing resumes, yet Seiichi can no longer see anything. The people in the world around him have completely distorted. As he is sentenced to juvenile reformatory, the world is empty to him, his view of self distorting before disappearing, his world ending, his home, his town, Fukishi, it's all over.
This is the end of what I would say is the second part of this story, the second big arc out of all three. This is the section of the story that has really started to illustrate and showcase how much trauma and how Saiko's actions have really affected Seichi, starting to build her up from what is a weird mother who has all sorts of weird issues to this manipulative, uncomfortable, unstable villain of a character. And while I don't really want to speculate on whether she has mental illness, none of that, because I don't know, I'd never know, it's just not fair for me to say, I think we can definitely all agree there is something underneath the surface that is unexplainable about her that we have to assume, that we have to put the pieces into, and we see Seichi deal with that here. Still, even then, the story isn't over. Yet again, we have one more arc that is going to go even deeper into Seichi and just unravel this story and finally conclude it. So let's continue. A long time passes, and I mean a long time. Seichi is now a fully grown adult. It's been like 20 years. He lives on his own in a trashed apartment, and to be honest, he seems empty. Working a bland job with that same lost expression we've seen time and time again, and him still unable to see things correctly. His world's still a mess. His dad calls that night, him coming over the next day. Him obviously far older as well, but still trying his best for Seichi. He seems to blame himself for what's happened to Seichi, apologizing for the fact that Seichi is all alone. Before they part ways, his father asks him about Psycho. Is he really okay with never seeing her again? He responds with conviction. Of course he is. Why would he ever want to see her again? Them walking away from each other as Seichi imagines Shige. Them holding hands as Seichi promises to join him soon. Time passes, but we can still tell Seichi's trauma is harming him, as when thinking of his father's words, a vision of his mother frightens him, causing him to make a mistake and get in trouble at work. Seichi gets an unknown call sometime later. His father is in the hospital, and while his condition is stable, the doctors tell him that he should prepare for the worst. As Seichi signs forms, he thinks of the time after the reformatory that he spent with his father. Him trying his best for Seichi, even though, as the reader, you can tell it was hurting him. Soon after being released from the reformatory, Seichi quickly moved away to be alone. Perhaps because, as the pages keep showing, Seichi doesn't see the world as alive. His father finally wakes up and tells Seichi of the things he has at home. Money, joined by a letter, just in case something does happen to him. Before Seichi leaves, his father asks him to hold his hand, him squeezing it as tight as possible before he apologizes. The next day, Seichi receives a call. His father's condition has worsened. He's passed away. Seichi rushes to the hospital in a blur, his face left in that same blank expression after viewing his father. Still, life goes on, and as he begins to plan the funeral, he remembers his father's late words, opening the drawer to find money and a letter.
Dear Seichi, I'm writing this for you after I die. You can keep my funeral to the bare minimum. If you're there to see me off, that's more than enough for me. Use the money in the envelope to pay for it. I've left my passbook and seal for you too. I'm sorry I couldn't leave you more. The fact is, there's something I've never told you. I paid your aunt and uncle damages over what happened with Shigeru. 80 million yen. I want you to go out and live your own life. The fault is all mine. I'm the one who backed Psycho into a corner and backed you into a corner too. There's no way I can apologize enough. I've lived with regret all this time. I hope that at least, after I die, you can go on and live for your own sake. That's all I want. I do have one favor to ask. I'd like you to put my bones into the family tomb back home. Lastly, I'll leave you Psycho's contact info. It's what I have from way back after your hearing, when we got divorced. I haven't exchanged a single word with Psycho since then. I don't know if she's still there or what she's doing. But if you do decide you ever want to see your mother, hopefully this will at least give you a place to start. Seichi then forcefully pushes the letter away from him upon reading this. A fear response, out of breath and shaken up as he tears the letter up and quickly burns it.
Seichi says goodbye to his father before he's cremated, stepping outside and staring to the sky, saying, "I'm alone. I'm finally all alone." He wonders, maybe the reason he was still in this world was because his father was worried about him. But now, no one is. No one in the whole world. That means he can leave now, right? All he now needs to do is put the bones in the grave. Seichi takes the long trip home and completes this task, praying and walking away as he thinks on the best way to disappear. And as he yet again stares into nothingness, a child bumps his leg. The family then runs up and apologizes, the mother being very familiar. It's Fukishi. Seichi instantly realizes and is stuck, and it seems like she might recognize as she is there confused. She finally speaks. "Have we met somewhere?" Seichi pushes his hat down. "No, I don't think we have." Them quickly discussing why they're there before they walk away from each other. Fukishi finally recognizing who he is as he walks past.
Seichi heads home and plans, sitting down at his table imagining Shige next to him. He apologizes for living all this time, saying it's now finally time. He can now die. Seichi gets incredibly intoxicated and begins his attempt, seeing Shige asking him to come and hang out with him. And as the light closes, he imagines his mother yelling, it instantly stopping him. "You're so selfish. You think you just get to die?" Shige then asks if he's not gonna do it. Seichi responding, "I will. I'll die tomorrow."
The next day, Seichi wanders around the city thinking of the best way to do it, stopping on a bridge before he imagines Shige asking him if he's changed his mind. He responds that he hasn't, but then he looks up to the sky, saying he can't do it, yet again showing to him that this entire world is ruined to him. This goes along with everything we know about Seichi. He doesn't have a sense of self. Everything he grew up with, his most developmental years, everything he's basically ever known in his life has been consumed by his mother. The moment he was told that he doesn't mean anything to her, his most important thing in the world, basically shattered his world. He can no longer see himself in it, illustrated by, everything being messed up, blurry, distorted, sketchy, weird art, and the fact that he just doesn't want to be in it anymore. You would hope that with all the time spent in the juvenile facility, even if it wasn't the best, he would help himself, he would grow inside. You'd want to hope that with all the time that's passed, he'd move on. But in reality, this is a way of showing that it's never that simple. And so sadly, we see that Seichi has given up. Seichi imagines Shige as a way to potentially, atone for what he did, or maybe justify it in his mind. Still, even then, when he thinks he's ready, when he thinks he has the solution in his hands, he receives a call from his mother, her still affecting him after everything he's been through with her, after what he's been through with Shige, after going through the hardships of the reformatory and life, she still finds a way to bother him. All this leading us into the final section of this story, Seichi and his mother. Seichi's phone then rings, an unknown caller asking for him, just like when his father was in the hospital. He urges himself to go to work, a sixth sense telling him what the call is about. Yet it rings again. Seichi picks up, the caller asking, "Do you know a psycho?" They describe why they're calling as Seichi scrambles through the train station, his world falling apart around him as he only thinks on his death. He finds a train, ready to jump, but she holds him back. His mother, the one thing he has left in this world. He cries. Seichi slowly walks to the police station, the same blank face as normal. His mother was apparently wandering the streets after she was kicked out of her home. The police finding her and calling a number they found on a photo she was carrying. Seichi shakes in fear as they open the door, him seeing a frail, gray-haired old woman till she turns. Psycho being the spitting image of his mother back then. She says, "I don't have children." Yet as the police introduce Seichi, she scrambles, panicking, saying she is yet to pick up Seichi from kindergarten. Seichi is shaken in fear and confused. He has no idea what to do. He can't take her home, but he didn't come here just to come here. Him looking down defeated as he decides he'll use his father's money to pay for her rent. They reach her place and Seichi speaks to the landlord about how he'll be paying for her. But Saiko speaks up. She doesn't deserve this. It would just be right for her to be homeless. Besides, she doesn't even know who's next to her. She doesn't even know who Seichi is. Still, despite her obvious dementia, Seichi pays and heads inside with her. The scene reminds him of his childhood, leaving him to reminisce as his mother finally says, "Wait, you're Seichi? It's been so long."
Seichi then flies into rage, picking up his warm cup of tea and splashing it all over the woman, raising his fist to strike her, but stopping. She shakes in fear. Why do I have to keep on suffering like this? Saiko raises her head, crying and apologizing. Seichi imagining her as a little girl due to her weak, childlike mental state. She then asks Seichi to kill her, yet this angers him. Seichi demanding that if she wants to die, she needs to do it herself. He pulls himself back and leaves, saying she'll never see him again. Him closing the door as he sees an older Saiko with the same stare on her face.
As Seiichi walks home, he sits down on a park bench and speaks to Shige, wishing he never went to see her at all. He could have died and been completely done with this all, yet instead, in his own words, he went and opened the lid. As he questions if he's even changed at all since then, Shige just says, "Nope, you haven't changed all this time. You've been acting like it wasn't there, but in reality, it never left." He imagines his mother as a giant blaming him just like before, saying that all Seiichi does is blame everything on her, when in reality, it's all his fault. He lashes out in rage, screaming and raising his fist, all before it disappears, cupping his face in his hands. He's sick to death of her speaking to him in his head. Months pass and a typhoon approaches, and for reasons he can't even understand, Seiichi ends up at Saiko's house, him being wrapped up into helping her search for her cat. Seiichi imagines himself as the cat yet again, wondering why he goes along with his mother as he ends up staying the night. As the lights turn off and the sky darkens, he finally asks, "What have you been doing? What have you been thinking? Why have you been living?" She describes how she worked all sorts of jobs throughout her life. But there was one day where she took a moment to imagine herself from a different point of view, walking outside and staring into the sky, and that's when it happened to her. The sight of a beautiful sunset caused her to remember what she had forgotten for so long. Or no, rather what she had put a lid over. Saiko then stands up and leaves the room, returning with an old photo album in her hands, opening it to pictures of her and Seiichi and commenting on how this was a very lonely time for her. Saiko then describes her life from her point of view, a hazy and blurry point of view, a product of her dementia-afflicted mind. Yet, this is the only time in the whole story that we truly get to hear Saiko.
Her childhood home. Things were sweet, but in truth, it was all a lie. Seiko's mother hated it and therefore they moved to a crowded house. They'd get mad at her there, even more so as her sixth sister was born. Her remembering her mother saying, "She didn't need me, no one needed me." She'd visit that hill often, jealous of the various families you could see, cursing them. As she grew, things worsened. She became more isolated and her family situation got worse. All she would do is put her head down and not bother anyone, so she wouldn't get in the way of their happiness. I hated being a human being, and I hated being a woman. Though things changed in high school, Saiko was approached and invited to the drama club, this transforming her. as on stage she didn't have to be her. There was no guilt or shame for living if she was a completely different person. After a specific performance, she decided she wanted to be an actor. One day she would go to Tokyo and join that world. She had found meaning. Her family spoke to her less and less as her sister got better. But this didn't matter. One day she hopped on the train to Tokyo, her only thinking about how she finally made it out. My life is about to begin. Saiko went through trade school for designing while learning acting, a traditional college experience. She didn't remember much of it. She then started work, advertising, but even then she visited the theater, one day meeting Ichiro there. Time passed, life moved on, and they moved in together, and before she knew it, she had stopped visiting the theater. One day Ichiro expressed wanting to move home with her to take over the family business, asking to get married as they do so. So I said yes, and I gave up. She met Ichiro's family, everything normal besides his sister, it being as if she could see straight through Saiko. When Ichiro's sister had had a child, she pushed Saiko to do the same, as it would help her to stop worrying about herself and take a load off her. She couldn't imagine it. After all, if she wasn't happy being born herself, why have a child? When talking to Ichiro about it, he brought up the idea of giving the child so much love that it would surely be happy to be born. And so she was set on giving the child everything she never got, a chance to finally start over. And so, Seichi was born. She tried her hardest but didn't understand it at all. Seichi didn't make her feel any less lonely. It was about this time when her sister passed, and her parents seemingly blamed her, saying she was the one who took her sister's happiness. Saiko, hearing this, realized that inside herself she had already killed her family. The reason everything felt so far to her was that everyone was dead. But what about Seichi? Seichi grows up slowly till they reach that day, and upon bringing Seichi up to the mountain, she hesitates when telling the story. Her imagining the child Seichi forcing her to tell what happened next. She asks, "Did I kill you?" Seichi responding, "Yes, you did. You killed me." She remembers the child Seichi asking if she did the same to Shige, and so she confesses. It was just so beautiful. The adult Seichi then sees a child version of his mother and realizes she too was killed, saying, "You get killed and so you go kill someone else." Then both now staring into the sunset. Seichi then imagines the scene of the cat, but it's reversed. Him as the adult guiding his mother through the scene. They find the cat, realize it's dead, then put their hands on it, get warm, and the cat comes back to life. The three of them hugging as the scene ends. Seichi then wakes up in reality the next morning, and with the typhoon past, he steps outside, the cat slipping past him. The cat then looks up at the sky. A day after a disastrous typhoon, yet a new beautiful day emerges.
This is a scene of healing. For the first time, Seichi seems to understand Saiko, and so do we. She grew up with all sorts of trauma that I can only assume led to all sorts of issues in her life. She did eventually find something she loved, but maybe out of fear or due to life, she went along with Ichiro and gave that up completely. She then had a child, hoping that it would fix her in some way, giving her the chance to create the life she never had through another being, potentially leading to the over-obsessive and strange behaviors we've seen. In the end though, it didn't work. It didn't change anything for her, and therefore, well, Seichi was seen as like an object to get rid of. She later did the same thing to Shige, feeling as if it was just something she had to do. She had to finish the job she had started. Seichi, with the knowledge of her life and the answers about the events that have tormented him, heals and comes to terms with it all. We see that in the scene of the cat, the dead creature he's seen himself as the whole series, coming back to life. The imagery, like I just said with the cat, around this whole event is just so beautiful. Before this backstory, Seichi couldn't make up his mind on what his mother looked like, young, a kid, or old. But after this, he no longer views her as the mother he had always known. Rather, he finally sees her for what she is now, an old woman. The sunset is also yet another repeating thing. The changing weather, or like a new day, being a consistent, constantly happening reminder of when Seichi has moved past something or is beginning anew. Finally, I love the just idea of Saiko wanting to be an actor. Performing roles, changing masks, having costumes, it's all within the sort of how she's acted. At this point though, I think Seichi is the clearest he's ever been throughout the whole series. His confusion, his hate, all of his feelings are finally aligned. And like I said, he finally understands his mother. Months pass. Seichi works, cleans his room, cleans his lookup, and finally begins to resemble himself again. He's gotten addicted to books, he doesn't drink anymore, and most of all, he wants to stay in this world. Time keeps flying, and one day Seichi has another dream. Of course it's about Shige, but instead of the boy encouraging him to die, to quit living, he tells him to go on, he'll be leaving Seichi, and that Seichi should just live his life. One day, Seichi wakes up to his phone blaring. His mother's had an accident and is in the hospital. She fell down the stairs, and while Seichi initially thinks that it could have been his aunt getting some form of revenge, he quickly moves past that idea, a hopeful sign of healing. Seichi begins to take care of his declining mother. Her dementia, old age, and injuries catching up to her, as it now seems like Saiko has lost the will to live. His days consist of work and taking care of her, from helping her eat to helping her bathe. He's doing what he can to keep her in this world. Perhaps to watch her naturally die in the same way that she slowly naturally killed him over time. This seems to be the case, as when the rent is up, Seichi brings her to his home, saying in the process, "If you're just going to spill over and come undone, I'll watch." Things continue as they have, though as time passes, Seichi understands that the time is soon to come. Him blowing everything in his life off so that he can sit there and be there for his mother's final moments.
Late into the night, the room dark and hazy, Seichi imagines a final conversation between himself and his mother. They speak about his upbringing, her asking why couldn't Seichi just laugh off how stupid she was being. Yet Seichi knows he couldn't. After all, he was a kid who needed his mother to love him. He was afraid she didn't love him and would hate that she didn't love him. He had killed her inside his head and then felt guilty. Laughing it off never once occurred to him. She then laughs. "Me? Not love you? I always loved you." He says he loves her too, before she remarks that this is yet another dream, him imagining a wish of his. She comments on his face. It's creepy. He calls her creepy, and she agrees. Them laughing and cursing each other before she says he isn't a son of hers. Seichi lights up and laughs. "That's great. I finally get to not be your son." They laugh some more before Saiko utters her final line. "Well, bye Seichi." Seichi wakes up in the morning. His mother has passed. He laughs as if he's won a crazy long battle, before heading outside into the early morning. The sun begins to rise as he spreads his arms out. The world is now more bright and open to him than ever before. It's all over. He takes one look back, and then runs off into the fog, him slowly fading out of our view till Seichi is no more.
That is the end, so to say. But we do have two final chapters. Two chapters that depict two characters who still have open-ended stories. The last two characters of our tale. And so, it's time we finish this.
Fukishi arrives to the childhood town where this all began with their husband, remarking about how much everything has really changed. She spots the underpass where her and Seichi held each other, wondering what his childhood home looks like now. As she rounds the corner, it's revealed to be demolished. No evidence they ever existed. Her telling her husband a boy she once liked lived here. He asks what he could be doing now, and, well, she has no idea. No idea if he's alive or dead, though she really hopes he's alive. That night I had a dream. He was in it. I knew it was him. He'd gotten older, and was living in some unfamiliar town. His face and profile looked so peaceful. It made me feel happy. The next chapter depicts that someone, Seichi, now far older and waking up from his quiet lifestyle. He lives alone in a small place crowded by books, him spending his day at the library and reading. On the specific day on the way home, he stops for a second to admire the view. Ah, beautiful. Then all of a sudden, I thought of my mother. How many years had it been? But the face that came to me was so hazy. I realized I couldn't remember what my mother looked like anymore. Blood on the Tracks. End.
This is the end of Chi no Wadachi, or Blood on the Tracks, the most vile manga I've ever read. And I'm sure by now, you understand that. A very fitting end. What better way to showcase that Seichi has overcome his trauma by making it so he can no longer even see the person who caused it. Right here is probably where I'd wrap it up into some big fitting conclusion or lesson that the series had, and that I felt like something I learned about it basically. But for this story, I really don't think there is one. And so I'll just make this quick. Rather than teaching a big, overarching lesson, Chi no Wadachi is a story that is about trauma first and foremost. An account of childhood trauma and how it can completely change and ruin some people's lives. There's an incredible amount of effort in describing and allowing you to understand how complicated and crazy Seichi's trauma is, as well as even more effort put into understanding where it came from and how this can be a generational thing. It's not just something one person struggles with and nobody else is affected by it. It's not how that works. At the root of this trauma is Psycho, a being who you could potentially debate on whether she's evil or not. Considering, things like mental illness or the things she's been through, you could make an argument for either side. But within this story, within Blood of the Tracks, Psycho is pure evil. This story is told by Seichi. It's his story first and foremost. Everything is from his point of view. And Psycho is the one who took him, enslaved him, pushed his actions, and ultimately ruined the boy. From a reader's standpoint, considering we see it from Seichi's eyes, she is evil. This brings us full circle to where the video started. People. Psycho is anyone like you or me. She doesn't have superpowers. She's not a monster. She's not special in any way or the other. She's a mother, a completely normal person playing a completely normal human role. Yet this normal person, a mother, a role you wouldn't expect nothing but the most lightheartedness from, manages to be an evil that can completely derail and change the whole story. You'd like to imagine people wouldn't be capable of the things that this story speaks about. Yet Blood on the Tracks is a crucial reminder that people can be anything. The most innocent people you can think of could very well be the scariest ones of them all. Potentially far more terrifying than anything, say, a movie could have or think of. People have gone through scenarios just like this. People will go through scenarios just like this. It's just sadly the reality of the world you and me live in. And Blood on the Tracks is a crucial reminder of that. Sure, like I said, maybe it's not here to teach a lesson. Maybe it could be a personal account of the author. We don't know. Maybe this is their life, a letter about their life. Maybe it's no more than a fictitious story about a mother just trying to ruin her son's life, or something like that. We truly don't know why it was written. But to me, Blood on the Tracks is a cold and calculated story about how harsh reality can be. Perhaps the monsters you and I look out for shouldn't be the ones from fiction. Maybe it shouldn't be the ones we see in comic books, on the TV, on the big screen in the movies, but the ones closer to you, the person you ride next to on the bus, the person next to you as you walk down the street, that person, your neighbor. At the end of the day, any one of these people in these situations could be the monsters. And as I've said so many times before, this story is a crucial reminder of that. As always, thank you for watching my videos. I have a video right here on screen about another horror manga. It's a bit more lighthearted than this, but it's also scary for its own very different reasons. I highly recommend it as it's also a horror manga that deals with horror in a different way than just jump scares and such. So if you like this video, please watch it. But other than that, thank you for watching. Thank you for enjoying the video. Show support, and I will see you next time.